Jayavarman II began work on the enormous temple after he took the throne in 1113. Completed in just 40 years, this temple was designed as a Hindu shrine devoted to the god Vishnu. Inside, the central sanctuary featured a great gold statue of Vishnu. Jayavarman VII admired his predecessor's great temple, and he resolved to build his own. But his masterpiece would be a Buddhist temple in the center of Angkor Thom, his great walled city. Jayavarman VII's masterpiece is the Bayon, which still stands today. This dramatic temple is a rectangular structure 750 feet east to west by 500 feet north to south. No fewer than 52 towers rise to the sky, including the 140-foot-high central tower. And gazing impassively from the sides of these towers are the carved reliefs of 173 faces. The outer galleries of the Bayon are carved with more than 2,000 feet of reliefs, revealing rich details of everyday life at the time. There are images of men enjoying dogfights and foreign buyers harassing topless Khmer women who are selling items on the street. A woman points an accusing finger as she cooks. Her finger is directed at her son, who is wasting valuable time watching a cockfight. There's an image of a valiant Khmer warrior as he skewers an enemy Sham soldier with a spear. There's also a detailed scene of the Sham in their boats on Lake Tonle Sap as they invade Angkor. In the eastern gallery of the temple, the reliefs celebrate the life and reign of Jayavarman VII. There's a scene in which commanders mounted on elephants march toward the enemy at the king's orders. The Chinese soldiers with spears who follow the elephants on foot are believed to be mercenaries. In the reliefs of the Bayon, as well as the structure's mountainous shape, there are echoes of earlier Khmer temples. But the Bayon was built as a Buddhist shrine, not a Hindu temple. At its very center, Jayavarman VII placed a statue of Buddha. Though this sculpture is from a later period, the original statue was removed after Jayavarman's death, when the empire reverted to Hinduism for a time. The original was later discovered by a French excavation team and is now displayed on the palace square. The construction of the Bayon posed many challenges to its ancient builders. Interestingly, there is a scene in a gallery relief of the temple which depicts how the temple was constructed. It shows how the foundations were built. They used sand inside wooden frames in order to accomplish this. The reliefs depict how the foundations were built, how the stones were moved, and how they were stacked. Workers had to compact the soil in order to prepare the swampy building site. Then some 420,000 stone blocks were needed for the temple's construction. The stones came from a quarry at Phnom Kulen, 25 miles from the construction site. Using bamboo rafts, the stones were floated down the river toward Angkor Thom. From the size of the Buddha statue, we can tell that it was carved from a single block of sandstone. We think they built the central tower where the statue was enshrined first, and then the stone structures were built around that. Starting with the Buddha statue, construction progressed from the center outward, with the central tower going up first. Eventually, more towers were erected, and finally, the tower took its current form when the outer galleries and walls were built. Though now only columns remain, it's believed they once supported a wooden structure. Inside Bayon, there was a wooden structure built on top of a stone framework. Today, only fragments remain from where this structure was secured. This was a common architectural element often used in monuments during the time of Jayavarman VII. That is, from the end of the 12th century to the beginning of the 13th. This sturdy stone wall and door frame suggests there was once a door here. And there are other clues to how the temple once looked. Zhou Daguan's memoir describes the exterior of the Bayon. There is a golden tower at the center of the complex, and there are 20 stone towers surrounding it. In addition, there are some 100 stone chambers. The records of a Chinese diplomat who visited in the late 13th century are quite interesting. They contain information about the design of Angkor and its population. Unfortunately, some of the information is either erroneous or unverifiable. The records mention golden towers in Bayon, but we could not find traces of gold in Bayon. It's similar to a mention of bronze towers in Bapwan, but no traces of bronze were found there either. We think this may be because they painted the towers to resemble gold or bronze. But from an archaeological point of view, we can't prove it. Based on evidence and expert opinions, these computer images reveal the probable appearance of the Bayon when it was completed. In the exact center of Angkor Thom, Jayavarman VII built the splendid Bayon in honor of the Buddha. The most striking feature of the Bayon is also the most mysterious: the eerie faces gazing out from the temple. More than 200 of them hold your gaze wherever you look. Some are more than 25 feet high, and no two are exactly alike. But what do the faces mean? Are they meant to be gods or people? Were they sculpted as portraits, and if so, of whom? The answers are as fascinating and varied as they are controversial. One of the first modern scholars to study the Bayon was Georges Seydas, director of the French School of the Far East for 18 years. Seydas claimed that the faces on the towers were that of Jayavarman VII himself, portrayed in the form of the Buddha. This theory was accepted as fact for many years, but recently, prominent Japanese scholars have proposed an entirely different explanation. They claim the round faces with almond-shaped eyes are in fact devas, benevolent Hindu gods, while faces with angular features and protruding eyes are asuras, evil Hindu deities. These scholars believe the faces were recarved after the time of Jayavarman VII, when the empire reverted back to Hinduism. And in fact, many Buddhist artworks were defaced or destroyed during this era. Buddhist statues were removed from temples, and Hindu statues were often erected in their place. If the Bayon faces portray the king as the Buddha, they too may have been destroyed. For the past century, Bayon has been studied and restored by a host of scholars. But there are still some 60,000 stone blocks which have not yet found their former places. So why is Bayon in much worse condition than Angkor Wat, which was constructed just 80 years earlier? A team of Japanese scholars who have been restoring the temple for 16 years believe it has to do with the stone itself. According to recent research, The ancient builders used stones from several different quarries to build the temples in Angkor, digging new quarries as older ones became depleted or hard to work. So perhaps by the time the Bayon was constructed, the choice of stone was much more limited. The temples that were built before the Bayon era were built with high-quality gray sandstone. But after the late Bayon era, high-quality sandstone disappeared, and they began using sandstone with yellowish brown and red mixed in it. Bayon Temple was built during the late Bayon era, and the sandstone used in it lacks in quality compared to temples that were built a generation before, such as Angkor Wat. Jayavarman VII filled the Angkor region with temples and other structures. He also devoted considerable resources to expanding the city's water system. The Khamir's ingenious water management compensated for the extremes of the region's distinct rainy and dry seasons, using a complex network of canals, waterworks, and reservoirs. Rainwater was stored in ponds called barays, then accessed throughout the year via canals. Although Angkor Thom was located far inland, it was a city on the water. You could travel by boat through the canals to Tonle Sap Lake and then sail the river all the way to the ocean.